Hello, welcome to the 2021 FME World Fair. I invite you all to step right up and win with FME Cloud. My name is Tony Viveros. I'm GIS database manager with the Forestry and Peatlands branch of Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development. Today's attraction that I'm going to be talking about is FME Cloud. It's going to be a fairly introductory level to FME Cloud. So if you're new to FME Cloud, this is right up your alley, I hope. If you're not and you've used Cloud for a while, or you're familiar with FME Server, I hope you still get something out of this and enjoy the presentation. But I'm going to be highlighting the objectives of what I was trying to do with FME Cloud, some of the challenges that I encountered, what the solution was and the results, provide some tips and benefits, and then highlight some future potential that I see for using FME Cloud in some of our workflows. So one of the things that we do in forestry in Manitoba is we use mobile applications quite a bit for field data collection. Collector, field maps we're going to start this year using, and Survey 123. I've been backing up that data for a number of years now using FME Desktop, but that was a manual process. And so I did the math and figured out that I was probably doing that over 100 times every year, backing up various mobile workflows. So I tried FME Cloud this past year and found that manual requirements to back up data was fixed with FME Cloud. So what were the objectives of getting into FME Cloud? Well, you know, I wanted to certainly become familiar with it. I attended FME events in the past, you know, heard about FME Cloud, FME Server, but really hadn't tried any of it. So I wanted to get my feet wet a little bit with FME Cloud. And of course, I'm trying to address a business requirement, and that's to improve our mobile workflows, backup data. So that was a key objective. I wanted to save myself some time in terms of manually, or not manually, or in terms of backing up this data manually with FME Desktop. And if I'm saving time, I consider that a win. So what were the challenges? As I indicated, we use ArcGIS Online and the mobile apps considerably in our field programs. And those field programs include our Dutch elm disease program. We survey trees, Dutch elm disease, or elm trees across the province for Dutch elm disease, and we record that information in Collector and in ArcGIS Online. We also do forest renewal assessments to assess the renewal status of blocks that were harvested previously. We've done community tree inventories across the province. We do surveys for forest health as well. One of the things that Forestry has helped our friends in fisheries is with our aquatic invasive species survey. So they use Survey 123 on iPads for that. And we have a couple of EB drones, and we fly those as well. And so we have a workflow and a dashboard to record that metadata in AGOL. And so I'm backing up that data as well. And a second big objective was also to automate some forest stocking calculations that were calculated from field data to provide field staff with near real-time information on the status of the work that they were doing. So this slide just illustrates the manual approach that I was taking to record data backups in 2019 and 2020. I would just enter the date and then run the FME Desktop workbench file. And then once I backed up that data in AGOL and moved it, I would then check check it off as being backed up. And so I did that, you know, I was trying to do that every day or every other day, but that didn't happen. You'll notice in the bottom there, June 24th, 2020, there's a little asterisk, and that's when I started using FME Cloud. So that's when this kind of manual recording of what I was doing for backups ended. So, you know, trying to automate this process a little bit more, I thought, okay, how can I do that? You know, could I use FME Cloud or FME Server? And FME Cloud was appealing for a number of reasons. First of all, there was no hardware to set up. So this eliminated the need to purchase and set up hardware within our government bureaucracy, and allowed for the deployment of FME Server in the cloud much quicker. I like the fact that you could pay as you go. So paying by the hour means we pay for only what's needed. So in our case, we just paid up front for $1,000 worth of cloud credits. Scaling up and down with different instances and more cores and RAM, that really wasn't a concern for me at this point because I was just starting with it. So I selected the lowest you know, options in that case. But it's good to know that you can scale up or down as your workflows become more complex. Security was important, and there was this FME Cloud security white paper that I received, and I passed that on. I passed that on to our IT folks, and I'm assuming they read it because I did end up getting, you know, the okay to proceed with FME Cloud. And finally, you know, the data that I was trying to use or back up rather and hit was already in the cloud. It was in ArcGIS Online. So FME Cloud was just hitting data that was already in AGOL. And my understanding, that was one of the benefits of using FME Cloud. So this is a complicated slide, but it kind of summarizes the solution and identifies the problem. So on the left side here, you've got a number of different workbench files in FME Desktop that I'd used or created to back up the data. The hosted features, create backups of hosted feature services in AGOL. And I was running these manually, usually every morning. The solution, though, was I used FME Cloud to automate that. I'll describe that in more detail later, but that resulted in a whole bunch of backup hosted feature services within AGOL, and that's what you see on the right side there of this slide. So how do you get into FME Cloud? Well, first, I started to just read up on it. There's some tutorials online on getting started with FME Cloud. There's documentation on getting started with FME Cloud, and I certainly read some of that, you know, initially. And then I thought, well, why not just create an account? And that's what I did. And this slide kind of works through that process, or illustrates that process of creating an FME Cloud instance. So once you've created an account, then you create an instance, which I did. Then you kind of launch that instance, which is basically just a virtual machine that FME Server is installed on. We go through the process. You select the FME Server version. In this slide, it's FME Server 2020, but 2021 exists as well right now. Then you can configure that server. You know, do you want a starter with 2 virtual cores? Where are you gonna, which region are you gonna select? So, you know, I just select the minimum requirements here for my case. There's some alerts you can set up, identify, which I did, and then towards the end, you can review your instance configuration. If everything is okay, then you just launch that. So once you've created that instance, then you can connect to it, and that's what this slide demonstrates. So so you've got your instance, and now you click the connect button there, and you get some credentials which you download, and then you connect to your server. That's a URL address there. This is our production FME Cloud instance I created, and then you connect to that server with those credentials that you would have received. So now, how do you take information, or how do you go from FME Desktop to FME Cloud? And that's what this slide illustrates here. If anyone's familiar with ArcGIS Online and publishing content from ArcGIS Desktop or ArcGIS Pro to ArcGIS Online, this is kind of similar. You're taking a workbench file that you've created in FME Desktop, and you're publishing it to FME Cloud. And so you've got your desktop workbench file there. There's an icon, publish. You just click on. You indicate the connection that you want to connect to, that you've created in FME Cloud. You provide that server URL, your username and password that you would have got previously, and then you indicate where you want to put it. And it's fairly straightforward. It's an easy process to get your data or your workspace from desktop to FME Cloud. So another step, or the fifth step I've identified here, is creating workspaces in FME Cloud. So this is just a bit of organization. So I've created a couple folders in FME Cloud, one for what I call AGOL backups, and one for just some other processing that I've been trying in FME Cloud that's not specific to backing up data. So those FME Desktop workflows that were associated with AGOL backups, I've just saved to that AGOL backups folder. Here you see within FME Cloud, which is FME server, essentially hosted in the cloud, you see the different workspaces that I've published, and you can view those in FME Cloud as well with the workbench viewer. So automations. I mean, this is an important component of FME Cloud. Once you've got your workbench files published and they're in FME Cloud, well, you want to automate that process of using of that data. So in our case, I want to automate the backups of our AGOL data. And so that's what you can do with an automation. So this is one example of an automation. You have, similar to FME Desktop, you have this desktop interface where you can drag various items and piece them together as you would in desktop. So here I've dragged an action item, or in this case it's a schedule, and then I've connected a workbench file, the one that I've published, to that, and it's a very simple automation. I'm scheduling within FME Cloud the backup of that Dutch elm disease data, and I'm doing that every day, Monday to Friday. So here's another example. This one is very simple as well, except it has now two workbench files that I've published that are part of the automation. before I back up the data, in this case it's forest renewal assessment data, I'll just do some calculations using another FME workbench file. I'll calculate some stocking levels. So in this case, I create an automation that schedules this process to run every morning at 1 a.m. So at 1 a.m., well, actually at 1:10, the instance, I schedule the instance, the cloud instance, the server to essentially start at 1 a.m. in the morning, and then my backup jobs start just a few minutes after that at 1:10 in this case. They don't run for very long, so an hour is plenty of time for running of about 6 different automations. So again, this is scheduled to start at 1:10 a.m. In this case, I use a cron. It's called a cron expression, and cronmaker.com I found was very helpful to get the syntax of how you create a cron expression. One of the things you need to be aware of is the timing, and if you're using the server and the server is located in a different time zone, you just need to be aware of the time of that server in that time zone when you set this up. So yeah, so it starts, and then it calculates stocking and then backs up that data with those stocking calculations. That's what this automation illustrates. Now, once those backups have run, well, the data exists in ArcGIS Online, and the data is stored in initially your kind of main folder within ArcGIS Online. So in the upper left, that's my name _, Manitoba, but that's not where I want it. I'd have hundreds of hosted feature services and other data sets there. So I have organized within AGOL, various folders. In this case, Forestry _FRA backups, for example, and I have a DED backups folder, a UAV backups folder, and so on. So unfortunately, this is a workflow where I still need to go into ArcGIS Online and manually move those backed up data files to folders within AGOL. So I know an ArcGIS Online connector does exist, and it has a number of actions that you can see there: list, download, publish, and so on. But unfortunately, it doesn't have a move action, and that would be one suggestion: is if we can add a move action, because then I would just add that as part of the workflow. So the data gets backed up within AGOL, and then I, as part of that workflow, move it to the folder in AGOL that I actually want the data to reside. It would save me from having to manually move this, not every day, but every week or so. I spend a little bit of time just to manually move backed up data sets. So tips and benefits. Well, one of them I've mentioned already, using CronMaker to help create cron expressions that you'll use in scheduling, for example. Schedule your start and stop instances. I do that from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. and that's all I need, and I'm only paying for that. So the graph below illustrates that. These are my actual costs, or the actual costs I incurred in FME Cloud this past summer last year, and I didn't hit over $25 at all, and I was doing this Monday to Friday. And the third tip would be start with a free trial. You've got $250 free dollars or credits. So I was actually able to back up all of my data all of the data last summer with that free trial. So I would consider that a big win because it didn't cost us a dime. And so, you know, the big X there, red X, you know, I didn't have to do any of that. It was much more streamlined, and it was free because I had those credits. So what are some future plans? Well, I certainly want to explore the use of FME Cloud in some forestry renewal workflows. So we have field staff that go out and at various plots collect a whole bunch of information. I do have an FME Desktop file or workbench file that takes that information, all that plot information, and then determines, you know, if that block is sufficiently regenerated, sufficiently performing, or not sufficiently regenerated. Still got some tweaks to do with it, but it's a complex workflow that determines that status. So I'm thinking if I can sort out the kinks in that workflow and I publish it, you know, pretty much I can have near real-time information to our field staff and managers on the status, the renewal status of blocks after field staff have collected that, that plot information. Another possibility, explore the use of FME Cloud to email timber inspection reports. After an area is cut, we do timber inspections and then collect a whole bunch of information. We're doing that with Survey 123. So one option we're looking at is using certainly webhooks and Integromat in Survey 123. And I think that would be our preferred option. There could be some IT issues for us to do that, however. So another option that I'm not sure might work or could work would be using FME Cloud and the external action to send an email of that timber inspection report that gets generated in Survey 123. Another possibility that I'm not sure about, but I'll reference here, is just using FME Cloud to generate DED community reports on demand. So one of the workflows I've created is one that generates Dutch elm disease information for communities. The province collects information on Dutch elm disease, which trees are infected, but it's a responsibility of communities to actually remove those trees. Unfortunately, they need to be removed. That's the best treatment for Dutch elm disease. So I provide, or we provide each community with packets, zip files of information that identifies where these trees are and other attributes associated with them. So I'm wondering if I could use FME Cloud to automate that process, in the sense that if one of our urban foresters gets a request for removed trees by a community, they would be able to generate that report themselves, and rather than having to email me and asking me to generate the DED report for Brandon, for example. I thought maybe Data Express might do that, but I'm not sure with this one. So in conclusion, I guess, what's the takeaway here? Or if there was a takeaway, the call to action, I would say, just if you haven't tried FME Cloud, you've used FME Desktop, and you see potential there, just give it a try. You've got nothing to lose. You're given free money essentially with a $250 credit. And so from my perspective, free money is a win, and you can save yourself certainly a lot of time. I have, and improve data workflows as well. Thank you very much.